Welcome to Breaking MedTech. I am Ryan. This is Cope. Rhymes with Pope. And today we are going to talk about product positioning in general, and strategic narratives that you use to support that positioning. Okay. And I'm gonna hand it over to Cope first to tell a story to kind of paint a picture of what we're talking about and what it looks like in a real world environment.
Once upon a time, Ryan, we sold a product that was pretty innovative, really innovative. It took a commonly used process in a hospital, safely accelerated it to the highest standards in a way that let operating rooms do a couple of things. Stay on time, avoid having to buy instruments that they didn't really need but just had to save. Avoid a thing that will give you sanctions from Joint Commission. And as you got good with it, you could go from saving hundreds of thousands of dollars a year by using this, by wasted time, turnover, disruption. You could actually save millions by handling other problems that came into their sterile processing department. And I mean, it's an astounding product. However, the way the company insisted on positioning it was so far downstream, people couldn't wrap their heads around it. And then when the narrative changed because of outside forces, they couldn't handle it. They couldn't talk about it. They couldn't discuss it. And instead, they would just say, don't they understand how great this is? And it was great,
by the way.
By the way, great. One of the three best products, definitely maybe one of the two greatest products, most innovative products I've ever sold, right? And I loved it. But the positioning was so screwed up. Customers didn't know what to do with it, didn't know how to apply it. And then when you talked about the big picture, they were like, there's no way. There's no way. We can't do it. Too many problems. And they would disregard it. Mm-hmm. It was the single worst and best example of bad positioning of a innovative small med device I hope I ever see. And it drove me crazy. And it still bothers me to this day. And what's happened? The company stalled. And we have friends over there. They're nice people. But their messaging sucks. And they wouldn't change it because they think they know better. And they don't. And it cost everybody a lot of money.
Yeah, we're going to get yelled at.
And in some cases, respect that we had earned in accounts. Mm-hmm. We lost some because we were associated with this company.
So, yeah. So I think the lesson learned there, or like the lesson that we're trying to talk to about today, is the fact that like you have to be very intentional with your positioning, and sometimes it is very
because it does matter.
Because it does matter, right? And sometimes it's really easy to look at like $1 billion space that you could potentially sell into. Yep. And you're so focused on that $1 billion space that you are not focused on the $100 million or the $10 million space that is immediately accessible, that allows you to then incrementally build on that, right?
Yeah, right. And here's why they worry about it, right? You tell me when I'm wrong. They worry about it because they think it horns them into something and they'll never be able to address the big picture. And they would say, hey, Cope, you said don't pay attention to the $1 billion total addressable market. You said focus on the 10 to 15 million right in front of us. But then we're only going to be used in the 10 to 15 million. Mm-hmm. And that is a falsehood med device seems to be enamored with. And I promise I've been in other industries. Nobody else thinks that way. Except med device.
Yeah, and like actually what inspired me to suggest this was like our conversation that we had a couple weeks ago about hammers and nail guns, of like, if you, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like if you position your nail gun as a hammer 2.0,
Right. Right.
you're limiting yourself. Like, yeah, you
Yep.
do the same job as a hammer, but you do it completely differently. And think about, like, this is a hard thing to understand, but like, think about your, like, if the first time that you ever saw a nail gun and you were like, there were some dudes on a job site going like, that thing won't work, right?
Right.
It's
Right.
it's hammers.
I put nails in just as well as anybody with a hammer.
Just be like, all right, calm down,
youngsters
John
need
Henry.
that newfangled, and you're like, God, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And now do you see a lot of work sites where they're putting on shingles or hanging drywall? You see a lot of them using hammer nail? No.
No. And
No.
it's like another great example from like an outside world is like, I cite this all the time. I annoy you about it. I'm reading a book about it right now. I'm listening to an audiobook about it right now of Steve Jobs and him introducing the iPhone. And like, Steve Jobs didn't introduce the iPhone as like a better BlackBerry.
Mm-mm.
It was like a completely different experience of how you were going to use a phone. Because if he simply just said it's a better BlackBerry, people would associate it with being a BlackBerry. But he was intentional with his messaging and everything, and his positioning and the narrative that he put along with it. So
what did he describe it? Did he describe it as a mobile device? Like, was there some other? Because I was going to say, like, if I brought out I'm the first person, Ryan and Cope invent the nail gun. In a world of hammers, we've invented the first pneumatic nail gun. Like, I would say, I don't know, what do we get? Like, if somebody's like, hey, isn't this just another hammer? Oh, no, this is a unique nail delivery system. Or something like, I don't know what we'd say, but my messaging would be, no. We're not a hammer. We're something entirely different. I don't know what the hell we'd say. But you have to say something different because you got to get them into a completely different mindset. And then once you do that, how would you look at that?
Cool. And you know, like the funny thing about the hammer thing is like, you want to know why I would not call myself a better hammer? And like in that exact situation is because you pigeonhole yourself with like, what do hammers do that nail guns don't do? I know you don't like hammers. You're afraid of them. But what do hammers do that nail guns don't do?
What do hammers do that nail guns don't? I don't know.
What does every hammer have on the back of it that a roofer would use?
Oh, a removal.
A claw. So if you call yourself a better hammer, they're going to go, yeah, but how do we pull out?
That's a good point.
How do we pull out our nails?
That.
Well, like that's actually something I was talking with someone about, like a software thing the other day of like, they were like, it was a CEO and he's like, well, I don't really want to call myself that because we don't do these three things that program does. And if we say that we're a better version of that, people are going to go, hey, well, how do you do those things? And then we're going to have to go like, well, we don't do those things. So like, he's like,
call me when you do.
He's like, we have to focus on like, here's what we do. And because nothing actually exists that does what this company does, then you have to create maybe your own position, right? You have to create a new, I don't like the idea of like creating new categories, though you can, like, because you can create your own category. I don't like the idea of like just going like being lazy and going like, whoa, you don't understand it because we're a new category. Like you can create a new category, you just have to be intentional about it. But here's where it ties into everything. If you're a new, novel, innovative product, okay, that is so drastically different than every other thing in the market, and you do have to create a new category or you are something completely different, one, you have to be intentional about doing it. But two, you have to create a freight train of a strategic narrative behind it, because if you don't, everyone is just going to lump you into whatever is similar to you.
Yep. 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 So how does one avoid that?
I'll give you an example, and I'm just going to keep bringing up this company over and over. Well, fine. Do you want me to come up with a different one? Please come up with a different one, because they're who I know off the top of my head. So
I don't know the point you were going to make. So go ahead, use your example.
Okay. So again, Native Orthopedics. I'm not paid by them. So Native Orthopedics, I would say if you ask them, like, what are they doing? They are a subcategory of what are they? They're preservation based soft tissue repair for knees. Okay. That's a really niche thing if you actually like preservation based, and you would go, yeah, but aren't all soft tissue things involved with knees preservation based? And you'd be like, yeah, but not as preservation based as us, right? And here's why.
We said it first.
We said it first, and here's how we do it differently. And if you go and look at all of their marketing and all their language and all the things that their founder and their team says, it is like all around the idea that we are so much more like this is the only thing we care about. We don't make total joints. We don't do this. We don't do that. You see all those big ortho bad boys over there, bad boys of ortho, right? All hanging out in Indiana, and
I'm telling you right now, I'm going to take a 30-second time out, and I'm going to put an embargo.
Okay,
on
I can't
all
bring them.
things orthopedics for the rest of time.
Okay, for the rest of time. So, but like everything,
so orthopedic.
Their entire narrative is around the fact of what their product positioning is. So, like, you can't doubt what it is. So, like, the same thing would be for like a, if you were selling we'll go to my other favorite thing to do, be like an orthopedic scheduling software. Just be like, not an orthopedic, surgical scheduling software.
Thank you.
Surgical scheduling. I said ortho just on purpose. A surgical scheduling software. Like, all we care about is surgical scheduling. We don't do patient intake, we don't do patient intake. Right. We don't do this. This is all we care about, because surgical scheduling in hospitals is costing X amount of money and block time and waste of time. And we figured out the way to do it better. And that's all we care about. And that's all we do. Right. And our entire narrative, our entire strategic narrative of our company is about solving that problem. And that's our position.
So you basically position yourself. It sounds like you did create your own category, but it's almost like secondary to saying we're different. We're very different than everything else. We're not like that. We're not like this. We're different. And then you create a category to define or to describe how you're different. It sounds like, because that's like, I sold a product years ago that was like, we weren't allowed to call it a stimulant. It woke the brain up, but it was not a stimulant, because people, when you said the word stimulant, had a preconceived notion in their mind. You spent the whole time saying, no, it's not like that. No, you can't. No. I forget what we came up with, but it was something for waking your brain up it was completely different. It was an accurate statement, but we couldn't be lumped in with stimulants, ADHD meds, because we didn't do ADHD. Well, that's not what we worked in. But people would say, oh, so you're going to cause people like you have all these beliefs that they're going to need this higher dose. We had to completely reposition it in a way that people said, well, hold on, what? I don't know what that is. And that was better than, oh, I thought it was that. Like, no, we're not that. We're something completely different. And we ended up creating sort of our own brand. Although I don't know that we ever officially came up with something. We just were able to differentiate ourselves enough quickly. But we had to, because we were being lumped in with things that A, were not appropriate, and B, we didn't do, and we would lose in that space. So yeah, all right. So that's the kind of positioning we're talking about. Look, I agree. I think I don't. Let me give you the example that I was barking about before we got on. I talked to a company this week, well-known company in the space that I don't want to talk about. Partly because I get frustrated with these people.
You have no idea.
These guys, there's this whole broad group of patients with all sorts of different, clinically on this pathway, degenerative and some acute issues. And this company's good in all of them. But in this big health system where they're not approved, there's one space that's at the sort of far end. It's the revision, messy case, painful patient, right? They excel in that and nobody else does, to the point where nobody else actually even has anything indicated for it. Or like people are using things because they're doctors, they can do whatever they want, but there's nothing really designed. And these guys have it. And they keep banging their head like, why is our product line, they won't approve us. This is stupid. And I'm like, well, why don't you just say you do this in that health system? Position yourself where they have no solution or bad solutions. And across this health system, you're going to get 5 cases a week. And they looked at me like, well, but we should be approved. I'm like, if I could make this sound, does this make the sound? Me banging my head against it? I'm like,
I think we can add that in post.
I believe that's the strategy for 3 years down the road. You need to get on board. They have a problem. No one else solves it except you. Strategically go in and talk about that all the time. And I'll tell you what's going to happen in 90 days. You will be approved. Not the whole portfolio, not the whole suite. Can you live with that to start? Because down the road, you'll build and gain momentum. And that's what they don't want to do.
Yeah.
And I don't understand it. When I was at pharma, we would say, use us in the messy case. We're really good. You got a bunch of choices. We're really good on that. And then if you like us in that, we'll figure it down the road. And we would sit there and go, oh, I know in 12 months, this guy's going to be using me for more and more and more because he's going to like what we did. We solved the problem. He's going to like it. And I can say, instead of like, oh, now you're only, this is what they think. You're only for my messes. I would say, actually, that's a great place to start. And we're glad you use us for that. But what people have found is once they see how easy this is and patients are telling them it's good and all that stuff, you'll find other places to use it like this or like this, but it's a process. And when I got into med device is like, no, that's not how we think. And I'm like, well, you should, because you're locking yourself out of opportunities. Why would you not want to help their problems? Then they're going to use you more as you build credibility and recognition. Right? Like that's what you have to do. That's what you and I talk about this all the time.
And I think you set up like you're creating like a realistic expectation, right? Like, I know you and I yell when we see companies who are like, well, here's what we're gonna do, or here's what we want to do. And you're like, yeah, but what do you do right now? Right. So if you're very like, here's what we do right now, here's our positioning, here's how we're positioning ourselves, here's the narrative that we're pushing through our messaging, through our website, through our social media, through our sales reps going out and saying these things. Here's what we do every single day. Here's what we're all about. Then you're positioning yourself and customers are going to see you as that. Now, that doesn't mean that like they're going to see you as valuable. Now, the idea would be that they do see you as valuable because you actually did your homework. Like you're solving an actual need that people will associate with giving you money and value. But like you're positioning yourself where someone's going to realistically look at you and go like, oh my God, they did solve this problem. And then you're building trust. And and here's the scary thing for a lot of these companies is like, you think you're limiting yourself. Okay. And here's the truth. Right. You are limiting yourself. You're 1,000% limiting yourself. I'm not going to tell you you're like, cause you are, right? Let's be
Right.
honest. You are limiting
Yep.
yourself.
Yep.
But if you're a small company, you're going to get someone who's going to buy what you do realistically today. Like, and that's like, I look at like RST. I'll say their name. I don't care. You know, a company you and I worked with and sold their product, and actually we never sold anything, but like we pushed and we tried, and like they had a really cool product, tray assembly, and they had a really cool product that was peel pack. I love peel pack 10 times more than tray assembly. Because you and I would go and talk to people, and we would be like, do any of you like peel packs? And they're like, no, it's the worst.
We hate it.
It's horrible.
Why
hate
are
it.
you asking?
Like, and RST's peel pack system was really simple, right? You put it on the vision platform. Machine vision took a shot of the instrument. It identified the instrument. It printed out the correct label, what the quantity was, and it created a peel pack. It cut a peel pack that exact length.
Big problem in hospitals, and big problem in hospitals. And it solved it damn near overnight.
Like per whatever the standards were of like, here's how much space. Yeah, AMI standards of like, here's how much space you need. Here's what it's supposed to be like. And it would put it out. You get like, they would put it in, seal the one side, seal the other side, slap the sticker on, done. Move on to the next one. And it was probably as fast. You know, there was definitely time savings associated with it, because it's like, it's just a very repeatable process, and there's something special about like, there's no variation. It's going to take the same amount of time every single time. So,
right.
You know, there's a benefit to it. But like, you could position it. They wanted to go after automation in all of sterile processing, instead of maybe looking at it and going like, how can we get this flagship product into a facility, and how can we position this? Because if we can get this product in, and we are all about like efficiency, and we're building the entire narrative around like, this peel pack system is a no-brainer for you, and we get it in here. And that's a very pharma mindset, because if you get that product in there and it does what it's supposed to do, it's going to do one of two things. One, it's going to generate revenue for you that you can put into R&D that you can then use to develop other products and improve your product. But two, it's going to be a proof point, because you don't have any trust. They've never met you. They don't know who you are. They don't know what you're about. They don't like,
nope.
But you can get somebody who's going to go like, that peel pack did what it said what they said it was going to do. And now I'm willing to look at.
Yeah. It was a much easier the barrier to entry was lower. It solved a problem that was very common. It was you could implement it tomorrow, and by the end of the week, it was made your job easier. And so many people, and they would then say, hey man, RST is pretty cool. We like this thing. It's really helping. Really? How about I show you something else that we've come up with this other thing that solves this other problem. We got credibility.
Yeah.
We got recognition. We have a great start. I don't know how UFC does it, but I'm going to make an analogy to sports. Back in the day, if you want to be heavyweight champion of the world, you didn't go, hey, you know what? Hey, Larry Holmes, I got next. And you just walk in and fight him. And if you win, you're the champ. Oh, no. You fought your way up. You had to go and earn it, right? Like, that's what I think people don't think. Like, hey, you want a shot at the championship belt? Yeah. You might need to go fight a couple of tomato cans and then a couple of other people that are like you. You have to build up credibility, recognition, awareness. And, well, if I just fight that guy, will everybody think I'm a tomato can today? But like in 6 years, you might be fighting Mike Tyson for the championship, right? Like, but you got to work your way there. And at the end, like, by the way, Mike Tyson worked his way there. Like, so did Evander Holyfield. So did Muhammad Ali. They didn't just walk out and say, I got next. Like, this ain't hoops at Rucker Park. Dude, you don't call next. You got to work your way up. And there's some similarities to this that it's a process.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a timestamp. And that's the thing. So like you've heard me say this, and I know I've heard you say it. When we talk to these small companies, they're like, oh, what problem do you solve today? Because you just talked to me for half an hour about clean water. You're about to fix clean water around the world. Can you fix Flint, Michigan? Could we fix them today? Because that would be helpful. That would be a big win.
Yeah.
And that would put us on the map. And it's tough. It's tough for people. They have this vision in their head.
Mm-hmm.
So positioning, Ryan, how do we button this up?
Here's what I would tell people to do, right? So I know I say this all the time, be intentional. Okay. So like you have to look at it and go like, how am I positioning myself? Write it down, right? How are we positioning ourselves today? How do we want people to see us, right?
Can I take a step back from that before that?
Yeah.
Is where do we want to get to?
Okay.
Right? Where's our end goal? And then how do we get there? And then because I think, and then you could say, okay, knowing what we know, where we want to go and where the market is, how do we position ourselves today? Which is exactly what you were talking about.
And how do we position ourselves today? And like, how do we position ourselves today based on what we can do today? What our key differentiator is, right?
What our capabilities are today.
What our capabilities are. What problems do we actually solve? How can we position ourselves to clearly communicate value around that? And then you sit down, you take a whiteboard, you write on a piece of paper, a napkin, if you're at a bar, right? And you just start jotting all of this down. And then you go like, all right, well then how do we support that? So then you take a step back further and you go like, all right, well, based on where we want to position ourselves, does our messaging say that? Is our collateral say that? Does our website say that? Does our sales reps saying that? Are our 1099 saying that? Is that what we're saying when we're going out and talking to people? Okay. And then if they don't, then you fix all of that. And then now you have a strategic narrative and a position that you're going to go after, and you're going to march in that direction, and you're going to get wins. And then guess what? You can adapt your positioning and change it over time. And that's completely fine. And I would tell people, go read Obviously Awesome by April Dunford. It's a great book. I've read it. I've actually read it. I've read it twice. And it's written for SaaS companies, but you can extract the ideas and concepts out of it
and onlay them
and go like, this is because she has a very simple framework of how she does it, of positioning like dozens and dozens and dozens of products and going like, here's how you actually should look at it. Here's what you should do. Because like positioning is a very old school, like amorphous topic that like is just so wide and so interpreted, like it can be interpreted in a bunch of different ways. And what I'm telling you to be is tactical about it. Don't just go like, well, we want to be seen as the premier orthopedic company on planet Earth and be like, urology company on planet Earth. Be like, that's a cool goal to have in the future. But how can we position you today to solve real problems? And then how can we create a narrative that supports that? So when people think about you, they don't think about you as a better catheter. They think about you as what you want people to think about you. How can you control the narrative?
So we'll conclude with this, because I opened up with a rant about a product we sold for years that didn't listen to us, and it was their positioning stunk. And in case anybody wonders how good Ryan is, Ryan wrote a whole marketing plan based on the 5 different customer types that then allowed you to address each customer type on that process where they were on the adoption process of the technology. And we couldn't have done it if we didn't know what the first step was, which was solve this burning platform problem, and then walk them down, and they will start to look like these other clients. And it was disregarded. So I'm very frustrated because Ryan spent a lot of time on it. Didn't get compensated for it. It was perfect. It was exactly what they needed, and they ignored it because they knew better. And that's why I get frustrated, because Ryan helped them with the positioning. And if they'd have just done it, they'd be 5 times bigger than they are now. And guess where they are now? Flat. Because they didn't listen to positioning. And it drives me insane.
Mm-hmm.
And it affected a lot of us. So, small med device companies, we love you. We care about you. That's why we talk sternly about you. What problem do you solve today, and how do you position yourself to be the experts in that problem? And then don't worry, down the road, as your reputation grows and your capabilities grow, the market will follow with you, and you'll have you'll have recognition as somebody who solved the problem of theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're buying your iPad, your AirPods, your TV, your Apple Plus programming. Because I sometimes think the iPhone was the gateway drug just to get you into Apple. I don't know. I sometimes wonder.
No, what you have to understand is Cope has an axe to grind with Apple. I'm not really sure where it comes from, but he's
I actually think
he
it's
just associated
brilliant.
them with drug dealers, but that's fine.
So it's good. I gotta go.
Yeah.
Here, but
So that's Breaking MedTech. Go position, go build a narrative around it, go succeed. You're going to do great. Just think about it.
And then when you scratch your head, call Ryan. He'll help.
Yeah, you could do that. Bye.